Well, um, I don't know if you remember us, but my name's John, and that's Joe. Um, it's been a while. How are you?
I'm doing well. How about you?
We'll come to that in a minute. The answer would be not well, literally. Welcome to the regular. Wow, it's been a long
I
time. I've
was wondering
forgotten
what
what
the
we
name
call
of
the
it was
podcast.
too.
The Family EV podcast.
Yeah.
Um, so, uh, yes, to our listener, it has been a while. I'm just going to mute my cell phone. Um, Strap in, and I'm going to put a note in the show notes if you want to ignore all this and just go straight to the way we talk about. And today we will be talking about the adoption of Tesla's charging standards and connectors, Tesla range, reality versus bullshittery, an update on our vehicles and road trips that we've been doing over the past 2 months, and much more besides. So there's maybe a long one, but we will put a post in it. So let me get through the personal thing first. That was the last time I saw you, right? When we were recording, when we tried to record that
Yeah,
long.
you were in, was it Boston?
No, DC.
DC? I was going to say
So,
Austin, Massachusetts, you know?
so, dear listener, I got a weird light effect going on. Oh, it's just because it's bright. Welcome to California in the summer. So about 7 weeks ago, uh, Joe and I hadn't put out a pod for a while because you'd been on the road, you've been doing trips, and I'd been doing trips, and we just literally just kept missing one another.
Quite literally in person and on the pod.
Yeah, yeah, we were fairly close to one another at one point. I can't remember where that was now. Um, and then, um, and so because we were committed to doing this, we said, look, let's record. And we went out of our way to do this. It was 7 o'clock in the morning for me, which means it was 6 o'clock in the morning for you. Because I was on the East Coast, I was in DC for the Gartner Risk Summit. And we had been recording for about 28 minutes. I was in a hotel room. And I moved my chair just like this. That was it. That's all I did. That was all I did because the light, much like now, was a little bit weird in the room I was in, and something moved inside me, and it did not feel good. So I said to Joe, "Dude, gotta go. Something's really bad." I got the rest of my bags packed up because I was going to be leaving the hotel that morning anyway, I think, and took myself to urgent care. And as soon as I got checked in, they put one hand on me and they said, no, we don't know what's wrong with you. You may have a ruptured bowel. You might be bleeding out. We don't know. We've already called you an ambulance. Would you like some fentanyl? And I said no. I didn't want fentanyl because of what I used to do for a living. And I'm not going to take anything like that until I know that my personal information is with somebody that can use it responsibly and notify my family. And I had kidney stones, and a particularly painful one. So I spent 3 days in hospital, and I had a procedure to try and remove them. And let me tell you something about that, Joe, and our listener. They did a CAT scan, and they identified what was the problem child, a particularly large shark's tooth shaped one, and the surgeon said, "Well, we're going to do this procedure, and what we're going to do is we're going to insert a camera so we can see everything clearly, and then when the camera's in there, we're going to send a laser up there, and we're going to blast it, And then we have another tool that's going to suck all the blasted stuff out. What I heard is we're going to shoot an episode of Star Wars inside your guts. Joe, I don't know if you know this, mate, but they don't make a hole in the side of you to do this. They use an access methodology, which I personally have always considered to be very much a one-way situation. And they were going against the flow of traffic. Now, listener, I'm going to do the joke, which I've been doing on the road for the last couple of weeks. And if you don't like it, I don't care, because this is my pain and my story. You got pictures hanging up. Have you had a girl around the house or something? What's going on? Because I've just realized it's all domesticated behind you.
I don't think we've ever filmed from in my kitchen.
Oh, look at this. We're both in the kitchen today. Interesting. Yeah. Interesting. I woke up from the surgery wearing underwear that wasn't mine. And it was also underwear I wasn't wearing when they put me under. And as any gentleman does when he wakes up, first thing you do, you check that everything's where it should be, more or less, that it hasn't changed. You certainly don't want it to be shorter. And that was all fine. And then, as I woke up, I would say I felt the need to pee is an understatement. There was a certain amount of excruciating pressure originating from the area of the gentleman sausage. That's the word I use now on stage because it gets such a fantastic laugh. Apparently, the Americans have never heard the phrase gentleman sausage. And everyone's a child, which is fantastic. She said, "You're gonna." This was the nurse, and she was absolutely fantastic. I'm going to say that right now. She really was. Because I was actually very, as it came time for the surgery, I'd been waiting for 2.5 days for this because they had problems trying to schedule me into it as an emergency patient, and one thing and another. And I was incredibly scared of one of these things. Where, as it came down to it, and I knew I was going to be going under, I realized that I was, 3,500 miles from any member of my family in any direction, and that was kind of like a moment. You know how normally when they put you under, Joe, they have you count back from 10? Well, such was my nervous, they said, tell you what, the numbers don't matter. If you want, we like your jokes, just tell them. And so I started doing a full set, and they loved it because I passed out quickly, apparently. I did the shirt joke, which I cannot tell on a YouTube channel. We will be canceled. But I fell asleep shortly after that. She said, you will need to be accompanied to the bathroom because currently you have morphine on board as a painkiller. And by the way, the urination exercise you're about to take part in is going to hurt, and you'll be grateful if you had the morphine. And I went, always good to know. Morphine, if you've not had it, Joe, it's like the heavy blanket of happiness. So good. So good. I was in excruciating pain, and I never knew what true pain relief was until they gave me that. I was just like, anyway, I said accompany to the bathroom. Well, I'm used to that. I've got 3 dogs in the house and a 7-year-old. I haven't been to the bathroom alone in friggin' years. And I did, and it was like peeing a razor blade. It really was that painful. As I looked down into my, let's call it, rented underwear, there was a good amount of blood, Joe. A good amount of blood. And I said to myself, Joe, I'm 47 years old. I've lived in California for 12 years. And this is when I start my first period.
That's what California will do to you.
It is careful when you do to you. If you think I was, so I have been. So anyway, here's the craziest. We were remodeling at the house, which is why you can see downstairs, and we were doing the bedrooms upstairs. So the problem was, if I came home, perfectly normal thing to do. I would be sharing the bed with my wife and child, who has a bad habit of kicking me in the night, and if she kicked me, it would kill me. Unfortunately, they were unsuccessful in actually getting the shark's tooth. They got some other bits and pieces, but they couldn't get the problem child. It was too far around for them to get to. So I had a follow-up attempt, and that didn't work. And so I'm now going in for round 3, day after tomorrow. A day after, yeah, so on Monday morning. So wish me luck. But in the meantime, because I'm just, I don't know what you would call it, 50 shades of stubborn. I barely took my foot off the proverbial throttle. So I couldn't come home. So I went to Austin because Tony Hinchcliffe was recording the 10-year anniversary of Kill Tony, which is kind of like a big thing for me. I've been on it a couple of times. So like a sensible person, I discharged myself from hospital and flew to Austin, Texas. And that same night, I went to the taping of a comedy special at the ACL. And then the after show party. And let me just say, this episode is sponsored by Oxycodone. And then and I spent a few days in Austin just recovering. I didn't do any shows. I actually just basically slept. Then I went to Boston for a couple of days because it was the Gartner Magic Quadrant. It was just major. It's how I get my bills paid. And then I went at home for a week, and I got medically cleared and flew to Madrid for 4 days for a summit, and then came home by London and did a comedy show, and then did all sorts of stupid things. Oh, shot a commercial. Did you see that, Joe?
I did. I saw it on the Facebooks.
So, So then I went to Dallas. I went for a week of working remotely and vacation, relaxing with the wife, and we went to Dallas, which of course meant I had to go to Austin. We flew in and out of Austin so I could see Hinchcliffe and do a couple of shows. And I picked up a commercial, and I will, if Joe, with your indulgence, I will put a link to it in the show notes. So I did a thing with Apple TV Plus, Hulu, and LA Galaxy. And if you're familiar with the program Welcome to Wrexham, the Ryan Reynolds thing, well, Wrexham were playing LA Galaxy, so they commissioned me to do Welcome to LA, and they've produced a full episode of it now. I would say I wrote bits of it. I actually improv the entire thing, and it was fun to do. So I got a credit for that with Apple TV, which is kind of cool. And what I didn't say is that the day before that I had my second round of surgery. Stubborn is just one word to describe me. Foolish would be another. So we did that. I rented a Tesla Model X. Joe and I had a conversation about this because I was going to try and borrow one of his multiple CCS adapters. And I took a trip from San Jose all the way to Port Angeles, which is across the Sound from Seattle. It's the main entry point to Victoria Island. And we rented a Model X. We'll come to that. We can talk about Tesla range in a minute. But that ended up being a typical outer spec stroke, regular EV DAG stroke, EV motoring stroke. What do we call it? Rip and run. Driving through the night. Just ridiculous. Yeah. And then I just got back from Vegas. I've just done the Black Hat Security Conference and God knows.
Was that another road trip or a flight?
No, I flew this one. Thank God. There was a plan at one point I was going to drive, but no, thankfully. I flew out on Monday morning for the conference, and I've been there. And then I was doing shows most nights, including, and I'm really happy about this one. Last night, it's kind of it's a 10-year-old show now, but it's kind of like how Vegas used to be. And so it's called Dirty at 12:30 down at South Point, run by Gabe Lopez. And so last night I got I broke my dirty duck, as some would say, and I did that show for the first time, and it was a fantastic experience. And there are, I don't think I did I did the jokes about my kidney stone on the earlier show, but I didn't do them on the dirty show. I can't tell you the jokes I did on the dirty show, because one of them is a brand new one that I've been working for the last couple of weeks, and it is cancelable. In fact, it's called every joke got a name, and this one is called Cancel, because it's all about how to get cancelled, and it's highly inappropriate, and it's going to be fun I can't wait to do that one on something televised. Let's put it that way. So. Yeah, it's just been quiet, Joe. Really, just been just getting through, doing stuff. I've got so many pills these days. It's scary. But hopefully, surgery on Monday will work. Let's talk probably about the biggest news, and I'd love to get your thoughts on this, Joe, while we've been away. So we were recording this because we were like 2 days behind the curve with one thing and another. But last time we attempted to record, the big news was that Ford, and then GM a few days later had adopted NACS, the North America Charging Standard, also known as the Tesla connector, as their standard, and we were going to talk about that. So I thought, well, you know what, let's pick up where we left off. And so we know a little bit more since then than we did now.
A couple more brands have tagged along. Ford was first, like you said, then GM, Volvo and Polestar have signed on. Kind of, I don't remember what the whole list is at this point, but
Rivian, I know Rivian did.
Rivian, yep, that's right. But I don't think Lucid has, and I wouldn't think they would, since Peter Rawlinson is not Tesla's biggest fan.
Well, I think also there's an issue with the fact that they have an 800-volt architecture.
Right, that's right. So that's why Hyundai, Kia have not joined the party.
Yeah. This is going to be
and VW didn't join, I don't think, right?
No.
That would be death to EA.
Yeah, well, then EA did announce that they would start adding Tesla handles.
Right, which so it's interesting because they've started moving to this new generation of charger, which only has one handle.
Wait, hold on. Dispenser. You've got to get your language right. Dispenser.
Yeah.
The chargers
Tower. Bank. Yeah. Plug. Yeah. And so, I mean, these new units, which actually, it's been a while since we've talked. I always used to complain about the local EA station being absolutely horrible, top speed of like 80, right? Well, now they finally replaced them with the brand new units. So I have not gone and tested it yet because they're still have cones all around them. But I'll be looking forward to seeing, did they just plop new units in the ground, or will this fix the speed issue? TBD.
Yeah, I mean, let's just hold on to the EA thing for a minute. Yeah, how they're gonna do this, I don't know. We do know that they're gonna be, Ford and Rivian at some point are gonna be shipping adapters to their existing customers.
Right, and I don't think so I know Ford said they're doing it complimentary. Anyone that's bought their vehicles, they're sending the adapter. I'm not sure if every brand is kind of signed on the same plan with that, I think.
And I apologize because I had to interrupt us there because my pet sitter just came home. I literally came in from the airport about like 20 minutes ago. Sorry, Joe, you were saying that Ford are going to give them out gratis to existing.
Right. I believe, don't quote me for sure. I believe GM is charging for them, but that's always subject to change because at the end of the day, it's all just a marketing tool to drive sales one way or another. If Ford says they're going to give it, that's basically like giving a discount on the vehicle or however you want to look at that on future purchase. What I'm interested in is how come they're waiting an extra year to change the plug, right? So they're going to start using Tesla's adapter, next year, but then they're not going to start installing the adapter on the car until, or the Tesla plug on the car until 2025. Wonder why that is.
I think there's a number of reasons of that. One of them is that Ford builds cars like Ford does, which is not how Tesla does it. So Tesla makes changes constantly, both hardware and software.
Oh, supplier contracts, yeah.
And Ford is not Tesla. They do not do iterative design and redesign. So there's that. The other thing is, and what's not been talked about in a huge amount of detail, is software. There's going to need to be because we just have to chop and change here because there's a thing going on. Software is going to be the big issue because with the way the test now, we do know that some supercharger V4s do have a credit card point in them, but we know that Tesla doesn't want to do that if they can get away with it. I know they were mandated in California to do it by a certain point, and no one knows if they're going to pay any attention to that. They turn down money to avoid doing it as well.
I wonder if they can get away with, like the way EA basically has one CHAdeMO plug amongst 8 other non-CHAdeMO plugs, right? And that's the way that they met the requirements. Maybe one supercharger tower has a card reader, and they don't have to put a card reader on every tower.
I don't know. We'll see.
One thing we know, it won't work.
Well, we know that they're going to have to. There's going to be some software element to this because you're going to have to securely identify the vehicle, and also what will be interesting is how they're going to do third-party software. So I assume at some point we're going to see a Tesla-ish software package that supports Apple and Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, because people are going to want to be have a choice of how to route. It's obviously going to have to be built into the OEMs as well, because you'll need to see that to make decent routes, you need to see what availability is, and charging performance and all those kind of things. So it will be interesting. So I think part of it is the software, part of it is in the hardware. They'll also use this moment because whilst it's a small thing, it's also a big thing. I would imagine Ford are looking at, and the others will be looking at how they can make it better for their customers by magically making the charging port appear on the back left quarter panel.
Right.
So that people have a better experience, not just for themselves, but for their fellow chargers.
That's kind of the whole thing within the whole EV market as a whole, right? Like if all the chargers were in the same spot, that would just make all charging networks better, right? Not just Tesla. And I mean, I know getting ahead of myself, but EPA standards is the next thing I know we're going to eventually get ourselves into. And it's like right now there's a couple different ways you can, figure out what is your EPA rated range. Why is there not just one standardized way that every single car has to go through? I don't know. That's making uniform ways is going to only make the industry better.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that in a minute. But yeah, so there's going to have to be some software elements, and I think it's all that. And clearly, they had a plan in place, and this wasn't it. And so it takes a while for these bigger organizations who've made huge investments. Let's be clear, Ford spent an absolute fortune building out this capability. So I'm sure there's stuff going on.
One thing I'm comfortable in saying is that a lot of people, Tesla owners are worried that this is only going to make very full stations in the future, but it also unlocks a lot of dollars for Tesla to continue expanding the network, which should prevent these full stations. So,
We've also seen that Tesla has licensed the handle to not Volta, someone else. That was announced a few days ago. So Tesla's aware that they are, because they make the superchargers. They're made in Buffalo. They're gonna have to have third parties make these things. So they've started that process to ramp it up. It's interesting. Well, it will be interesting. I will say, the Tesla experience, the charging experience, is a better one. Clearly, good design, minimal number of components is always going to be a winning formula. But clearly, they also have something going on by the fact they not just own the network, but the servicing of it. Have you been watching? Have you been watching the Tech race?
Still on the supercharging. Is this supposed to all just be plug and play the way Tesla charging is, or is it still supposed to be like the way I would use the app to charge on the Magic Dock?
We'll see, but I assume they're gonna want to make it as seamless as possible. And if you think about it, so the adapter isn't just a straight pass-through adapter. It does have an identification number in it. It has to, and that is essentially a MAC address, a unique identifier for that handle, which identifies it to the account. And so that would take care of a lot of the billing issues. That's essentially what EVgo does. When they have that, you can auto charge with EVgo because it gets the corresponding number from your car. It works on the Audi on the e-tron. So I assume they'll be doing that, but they're going to want to tie it into the software as well. So we will see. But yeah, it's going to be interesting. I mean, how often do you pull into a very full supercharger on your road trips?
Around here, there's one by O'Hare Airport that's famously busy, and quite frankly, it's because there's only 8 plugs there, and it's also because if you're waiting for someone to come in on a flight, you might as well sit there and get some juice while you're waiting. So that one's really bad, but the other ones around here, I'm lucky if I see them 25% full. There's one by work that is sometimes more full. We are getting more subscribers by the minute right now. Oh, we just lost them. The one by my office is actually pretty full, but they're building another one across the street. So it's kind of that, as long as they have so much data, so they know the utilization rates to know when it makes sense to add another location. As long as around here, there's no shortage of power. So it's not, we don't have to worry about that around here. But yeah. Out by you is obviously a different story as far as the Tesla.
Yeah, I mean, so 2 weeks ago, we took this trip, and I didn't want to put I really didn't. So here's how this happened. We were going to a dog show, and if my wife was taking 2 dogs, we would have taken the Audi, the e-tron. Because I can put the 2 dogs in the back. I can put I would put the roof box on it, and then between the back seat and the roof box, we would have had room for all the stuff. But my wife wanted to take 3 dogs, and so that meant the only choice was a Rivian S.
Don't you still have your van or no?
We do, but we're trying not to put any miles on that. The van is going to be going soon. And the white van, the big white transit van that we also have for dog shows, is also about to be going because we have a brand new transit that is going to be with us in the next couple of weeks, and so I don't want to put. This was just the wrong time to put 2,000 miles on it. And I found a Model X for not that much money. Now, this was a 2018 Model X with 140 something miles on the clock. Long range, 100D long range, which is EPA rated for 320 miles. Now, we believe that speaking of the YouTube EV community as a whole, believe the only valid cycle is 70 miles an hour with the air conditioning on. And on that basis, it got 189 miles, which is kind of disappointing. And you would think about that. Off that battery, and yes, there is some degradation in it. The app, so I did check, said it was at 11% degradation, which is probably about right. But it is it was disappointing. Let's put it that way. I did think it would go further. Now, the irony is I was doing this just as this whole news article, this whole thing was going through the news at the time about, Tesla having dedicated channels for, dealing with this kind of problem. I will say the car charged pretty well. It did peak at 240 or thereabouts in a low state of charge. Because of the way it does the voltage and everything like that, you do not get full power until it hits 11%. And it would hold it through about 27%. Crucially, it would hold 100 through 53%.
That's pretty close to what my car does too, despite being a small battery.
And then it would gently ramp down. Obviously, because this is how we roll. I wasn't charging to 100% at any point. I was ripping and running. So on the way up, we made 6 stops. On the way back, we made 5. We did some longer charges on the way back because it ended up being a through the night drive. We left Squim, where this was all the dog show was taking place, at 10:30 in the morning, and we got back into the Bay Area at 5 in the morning. And by the way, for the person who comments on how many hours, I've had 1 hour sleep. I didn't leave the venue until 4:30 this morning, got to the hotel at 5, packed my bag, got an hour and 10 minutes of sleep, and then went to the airport and got the plane. I slept a bit on the plane, but it's only an hour and a minute of a flight. So in terms of the utilization, I mean, obviously the Tesla network is great. I think almost everywhere we went, except ironically, except for the one that was closest to us at our destination, everything was V3. That was a V2.
Yeah, and the biggest perk of V3 is actually the non-power sharing.
Yeah.
I mean, there's more speed, but the more speed is for such a short period of time. It's really the fact that you can park next to anyone and you're still going to get the best charge you can get.
And Kyle did a brilliant video recently on the upgraded site at Baker, where there is also a mega charger for the Tesla semis. And he actually talks about how the bus works at V3, which I found very enlightening. What was also amusing is that Sunday, when we were driving back on Sunday afternoon, obviously that peak driving time, they were busier. I like the way that most people kind of agreed the system where you see where you are in the line, and people, it's fairly well controlled. I was blown away by Sutherland. So Sutherland, which is south of Portland, north of Eugene, I think. It's one of the it has an EA site like a couple of 100 meters away, which has 4 chargers, 2 350s, 2 150s. The brand new supercharger, which is in the Tractor Supply and Taco Bell car park, has 52 V3 chargers. Just like, yeah. So it was, no problems with the network. Got very frustrated with the bullshit, the efficiency of that vehicle and the bullshittery of it. I will say, yeah. Model 3, Model Y, I think they're great. I think the Model X, I know they've put new battery chemistry and everything else in it now, but I have problems with the value proposition of that these days. I think Tesla's kind of lost its way on the luxury, long range part of the market. I think the Plaid is an interesting use case, but that is a geek's car, the Plaid.
Right.
Model S.
I'm in agreement. I think the Model 3 and Model Y are the best value in their respective segments, and even against a lot of gas cars at that price point. But at the higher end, I'll take an iX or EQS SUV or EQS. The i7 is awesome.
I looked at, there were a couple of EQSs on Turo, but they're so new. Actually, the issue wasn't the cost of renting them; it was going to be the cost of the mileage. It was going to cost me more in mileage than it was renting.
Oh, the limits on the mileage. Yeah,
because you have in mind, I did 1,798 miles over 3 days. Whack job that I am. The car was doing pretty well. It needs some love. I mean, obviously everyone's, the cars are only good as the maintenance program with them. It was interesting to see some of the seals were starting to go, the rubberized seals on the gull-wing doors. That's just because, they get the crap beaten out of them with the California sun.
I know it's such a party piece that they want to keep the gull-wing doors, but just put the minivan sliders on and it's a better car.
100%. 100%. That was going to be my point. But yeah, it was still pretty well screwed together. I will say I was not happy. Some of the front brakes were metal on metal. I was not happy with this. But at that point, I wasn't in a situation where I could cancel and get a different car, and it was, so safety margins and one thing and another. But yeah, it was frustrating. I really did expect. I expected that car to do 250. I expected it to make 250. And yeah, every time you charged it up, it was just lying to you.
Yeah, that's why I use percent on mine, because even with the Model 3 rated at 270, my range test came out to, I think it was like 220, 230, somewhere in there, which still is good. But
here's the thing: when you're using the route planner, the Tesla route planner, it is accurate. It says you're pulling with 4% based on your current driving. It actually means it.
Yeah. The route planner is perfect at saying you can only go 180 miles, but 3 inches to the top left, you can go 300 miles.
Yeah, that's a thing. So yeah, that was so that happened. What else is going on in our world? Oh, so I was in pain in the hospital. So I think, did you and I talk about it on the podcast that never got published? That was also the day that they announced the Volvo C30.
Oh, okay. Or
EX30.
Yeah.
The baby.
Yep.
So I ordered one of those while I was.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of those. It's a really good price point, and it's going to be quick. It's got the all-in-one screen setup.
I
Not sold on
don't.
the sound bar. I like being surrounded by music, but
I don't need it. Probably will, get a refund on my deposit. Yeah, I did it while I was on morphine. I watched the presentation and went, "Ooh, yeah, click, pay," because we still have an EX90 on order, and I'll be putting in for an ID Buzz as soon as I can.
yeah,
Very disappointed that we are not going to get a Californian or a camping capable one for quite some time. I was never going to buy one for that.
that's the one I was interested in, but that's fits my lifestyle.
Man that drives around in a van looking for. No, okay, I'll leave that alone.
Yeah, man with van.
Would you like to sleep in my van? Um, so, yeah,
Although the way it would end up being is they'll make this California Volkswagen, right, California edition, but then they'll still have the 30-minute timer on the air and heat, so it won't actually even run overnight. That's what'll end up happening. That'll be the
well,
most Volkswagen of it.
the new so I'm running the new software 3.5. We're now getting cars delivered with 3.5. We don't have any information on software updates yet, but how friggin' hard can it be for them to just create dog mode
Yeah.
and camp mode? I mean, these things are easy.
Yep.
I mean, camp mode is
Yeah.
a bit of a problem because they don't have it will be very energy intensive because they don't have a heat pump. But to not have dog mode in this day and age is just frustrating.
Yeah, and I'm not sure why. I'm not sure what the point of trying to avoid it. I mean, it's such a sales pitch to that whole community. I mean, Tesla puts their commercials out. I mean, they only put them out on YouTube, but it's like it's a very. I've showed it to friends that are dog owners, and they're sold on a Tesla because of it.
100%.
And then they use my referral link, which is now capped at 12 per year.
Yeah. We are seeing, speaking of keeping on Teslas, we're seeing Cybertrucks coming through. Looks like they abandoned the exoskeleton idea because they had problems getting it through crash tests and stuff like that. So, delivery instead of bullshit over bravado.
Yep, we still have these are supposed to be, here in a couple months. We still have no idea on pricing yet, but my thought is it was going to start at 40, 50, and 60. I think it'll be 50, 60, and 70 most likely.
I'd agree. I would agree with that. We'll see where it comes down. The EV9 from Kia, likey.
It's a big box.
It's a big box, which is what the regular EV family wants.
Yep.
So I don't think Mrs. Regular EV loves her Audi, the comfort of her e-tron, the comfort of her e-tron. I can't imagine her wanting to move down to a Kia EV9. I think the Volvo EX90 will work for her. So we'll see what happens.
I patiently dream every night of someday there being an electric Land Rover Defender.
If I had, I got an email from Car Gurus telling me about Audi e-tron GTs for less than $60,000, and I'm like, if I wasn't so cheap, my problem isn't buying the car; it's paying the bloody sales taxes. The way we calculate in California, there's no trade-in above value, so you always pay near as damn it 10% in sales tax, and it
just come buy it over here.
Yeah, unfortunately,
sales tax trend.
Registration's the problem, my friend. I need it to be registered. But yeah, it's been an interesting time. We will let's put a ribbon on this, my friend. So we are hopefully going to get back to a more regular schedule.
We promise to put out a video every 3 months for sure.
You might not be wrong. We're trying to get back to a more regular schedule. And I'm going to be taking a little bit of time off once things calm down a little bit to get some content of my own up. I'm so far behind, it's not even funny. And it's just not something you can outsource, unfortunately. Otherwise, I would.
Yep. I have a Tesla road trip from February that's next in the queue.
Yeah. But sorry we were gone for so long. It was for a very, very real reason, unfortunately. Take care of your health, and your health will take care of you. But other than that, Joe, thanks as ever for being here. And I
Thank you.
will see you. You and I need to have a conversation, have a catch up afterwards, because we need to work out when our schedules are going to collide again.
Yep.
With that,
Take care until next time.
thanks for being here.